Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. Today, we'll be exploring the career of Bob Seger.
Oh, yeah.
From his start in Detroit
hmm
all the way to becoming a rock legend.
Right.
We've got some great sources here that really dive deep into the heart of his journey. You know, all the highs, the lows,
Yeah.
the big gambles, the tough choices that ultimately made him who he is.
Yeah.
So, to kick things off, let's rewind back to the late 1960s in Detroit,
Yeah.
where a band called The Last Herd,
Okay.
with the young Bob Seger at the helm, was really starting to make some noise in the local music scene.
Yeah. I mean, they had this really raw,
Yeah.
energetic sound that just packed out venues all across Detroit.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before they caught the eye of Capitol Records,
Right.
got themselves a record deal,
Yeah.
and they even rebranded themselves as the Bob Seger system, which you gotta admit
Yeah.
has a much better ring to it.
Oh, definitely. Way more punch.
Yeah, exactly. It really seemed like they were on the fast track to stardom.
Right.
Ready to hit it big.
And their debut album, Ramblin Gamblin Man,
Mm-hmm.
saw the title track climb all the way to number 17 on the Billboard chart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Big deal.
a pretty strong start
Huge.
right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did that early success kind of pave the way for wider recognition?
Well, you would think so,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's where things get really interesting. The album, it didn't quite catch fire nationally the way you might expect.
Okay.
And then their next two albums,
Yeah.
same story. And you got to remember, Seger was pouring his heart and soul into this music, you know?
Right.
So to put it out there and not really connect with a larger audience,
Yeah.
that had to sting a bit. I mean, it definitely made him kind of question his path, especially when you think about some of the other Detroit acts that were blowing up at that time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Detroit music scene
Right.
was on fire back then.
Right.
You had the Supremes, the MC5,
Yeah.
just this incredible energy. Do you think being surrounded by that kind of success, you know, with his peers hitting it big,
Oh, yeah.
added extra pressure for Seger?
I mean, just imagine
Oh, yeah.
seeing everyone around you achieving the very thing that you're striving for.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'd be tough.
it's got to be tough. And to make matters worse, Capitol Records actually dropped him,
Oh, wow.
which honestly, for a lot of musicians,
Yeah.
that could have been the end of the road right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So after a blow like that,
Yeah.
how did he bounce back? I mean,
Well, he took a step back from music.
okay.
You know, he actually enrolled in college,
Interesting.
spent some time reflecting on his path and figuring out what he really wanted.
Yeah.
It must have taken some serious courage to just walk away from something he'd been pursuing for so long.
Yeah,
You know, especially when the future was so uncertain.
absolutely.
But eventually, his passion for music just couldn't be ignored. He found his way back. Like
Yeah.
it was calling him.
So it seems like that time of reflection was a real turning point for him.
Mm.
But when he did come back to music, did he face an uphill battle?
Oh, he absolutely did. The sources paint this picture of his life in the early 70s that's almost like he was living a double life.
Oh, well. Okay.
You know, on one hand, he's selling out stadiums in Michigan,
Yeah.
playing to like 70,000 people,
Huge crowds. Yeah.
massive crowds. But then 200 miles away, he's playing to practically empty bars,
Oh, wow.
struggling to even cover basic expenses. It was this constant grind, constant travel just to make ends meet.
Yeah. That contrast is pretty incredible.
It really is.
You know, going from those massive stadium shows to
Yeah.
the smaller venues. Did he ever consider giving up at that point, facing that kind of
Oh.
financial strain and the lack of consistent recognition?
I mean, honestly, it would have been understandable if he had, you know?
Yeah.
But Seger was just incredibly determined.
Yeah.
He formed the Silver Bullet Band in '74, and he was really careful about who he brought into the band. He wanted musicians who shared his vision, who were ready to kind of weather the storm alongside him.
All in it together.
Yeah, they were all in it together, and that's when things started to shift.
So what was the catalyst for that change? What finally pushed him onto the national stage?
It all started with the decision to record a live album, Live Bullet, at Cobo Hall in Detroit in 1975.
Okay.
Now, this was a pretty big risk at the time. Live albums weren't exactly, you know, flying off the shelves.
Yeah. Why were live albums seen as kind of less desirable back then? Was it like a quality thing, or was it just a lack of interest from the fans?
It was a few things. Studio albums, they allowed for this really meticulous production, everything perfect.
Yeah.
Live albums, they were raw, they were unpolished, they captured the energy of the performance.
Yeah.
But some people felt they lacked the sonic fidelity of a studio recording. Some people saw them almost as like B-sides or filler material. But Seger, he saw an opportunity. He saw a chance to showcase that authentic connection he had with his fans.
Yeah.
To capture the raw energy and emotion of his live shows. But the real gamble came the following year.
What happened?
He decided to release Live Bullet almost at the same time as a brand new studio album called Night Moves.
Wow.
And he put everything into it.
Yeah.
Over $200,000. That was a fortune back then.
Huge risk.
It was an all-or-nothing gamble.
Yeah, especially with the kind of uncertainty surrounding live albums at the time. That's a huge financial risk.
Absolutely. But, sometimes you got to go with your gut.
Yeah.
Trust your instincts. And in Seger's case, it paid off big time.
That's where we'll pick things up in the next part of this deep talk.
I mean, Live Bullet, it just captured that raw energy of his live performances, and it just resonated with people. I mean, it's still considered one of the greatest live albums of all time.
Oh, wow.
And then Night Moves with those deeply personal lyrics, those soulful melodies.
Yeah.
It just soared to the top of the charts. I mean, the title track, it peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Wow.
And the album sold over 6 million copies.
That's huge.
I mean, this wasn't just a comeback. This was a complete transformation.
Yeah, it's amazing how those two albums, released almost side by side, just kind of catapulted him to national recognition.
Yeah.
So it seems like taking that risk, staying true to his vision, it really paid off.
Oh, absolutely.
But how did he handle that newfound fame? I mean, it must have been...
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
He went from playing these smaller venues to selling out arenas practically overnight.
Yeah.
Constantly in the spotlight.
Right.
Interviews, appearances, all that comes with stardom.
Yeah.
The sources kind of describe how he wrestled with the loss of privacy, the feeling of being constantly watched, and even like a sense of isolation that can sometimes come with fame.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a pretty big shift.
It is.
Did he ever address those feelings in his music?
Well, while his music always kind of stayed connected to those themes of everyday life, real-world struggles, he also started to kind of explore the darker side of success.
Yeah.
Some of his later songs, they hinted at the loneliness and the pressures of fame.
Interesting.
Suggesting that, while he was obviously grateful for his success, it definitely came with a price.
It's interesting how his music kind of mirrored those personal experiences.
Right.
Did this newfound fame change his approach to making music at all?
Well, interestingly enough, not really.
Okay.
He continued to resist any attempts from, the industry to kind of mold him into something he wasn't.
Right.
He stuck to his roots. He kept writing and performing music that felt true to him, to his experiences and beliefs.
So he didn't let it change him?
No.
It would have been easy to kind of succumb to that pressure, to chase trends and try to please everyone.
Right. It would have been easy, but he didn't.
It seems like that time away from music, that period of self-reflection, really solidified his artistic vision.
I think so, too. It allowed him to understand what really mattered to him, to define success on his own terms.
Right.
And it helped him navigate the challenges of fame, stay grounded amidst all the chaos. He knew what he wanted to say with his music, how he wanted to present himself to the world.
Right.
And that authenticity, it resonated with his fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that strong sense of self, did that extend to his business dealings as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Seger was known for being fiercely independent, really protective of his creative control.
Yeah.
He negotiated his contracts carefully, retained ownership of his music.
Wow.
That kind of control was pretty rare at the time, especially for an artist who had achieved that level of success.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he was able to maintain his artistic integrity.
Yeah.
While navigating that sometimes cutthroat music industry. It really speaks to his character.
It does.
But even with all that success, he made a pretty surprising decision in the 1980s.
Yeah, he decided to step away from the spotlight, prioritize family and his personal life over the demands of fame.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this surprised a lot of people.
Yeah.
He was still at the peak of his career.
Yeah. I mean, why walk away at the height of your popularity? It doesn't seem to make sense.
Well, this is where the sources really give us a glimpse into Seeger's values, what truly mattered to him.
Yep.
He had achieved this incredible success,
Yeah.
but he recognized that there was more to life than fame and fortune.
Right.
He wanted to be there for his family, to experience life outside of that celebrity bubble, to enjoy the simple joys that he felt were slipping away.
It seems like he found a balance between his passion for music
Yeah.
and his desire for a fulfilling personal life.
Absolutely. He continued to make music, but at his own pace, on his own terms.
Yeah.
He proved that success doesn't have to come at the expense of personal happiness,
Right.
and that prioritizing what truly matters is ultimately more rewarding
Yeah.
than chasing fleeting fame.
His story is such a good reminder that success comes in many forms
Mm-hmm.
and that staying true to yourself is really the most important measure of fulfillment.
Yeah, stepping back like that, it really challenges how we usually think about success.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about topping the charts or selling out arenas. There's more to it than that.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
That sweet spot between personal fulfillment and achieving your goals.
Yeah.
And for Seeger, it seems like family was always that top priority.
Right.
The sources we have really highlight that. He didn't want to miss out on being a dad,
Yeah.
being present for his wife, all those everyday moments that can get lost in the craziness of superstardom.
Right.
I mean, he was willing to trade that constant spotlight for something more meaningful. Yeah, and that's something you see a lot with artists
Yeah.
trying to balance the demands of their career with just having a grounded personal life.
Absolutely.
But it's not often you see someone at Seeger's level just step back so deliberately.
It's true. It really speaks to his character, his priorities.
Yeah.
And, it kind of ties back to his early days in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
Remember, even back then, he was fiercely loyal to his bandmates, to his roots. There's this thread of authenticity, staying true to his values, that runs through his entire career.
So it's not just about the music with Bob Seger.
Right.
It's about the man behind the music. The choices he made, the risks he took. They all tell us something about who he was at his core.
Exactly. And that's what makes his story so captivating, so inspiring.
Yeah.
He didn't play by the rules. He charted his own course, did things his own way, and achieved success without compromising who he was. That's a powerful message, especially today when there's so much pressure to conform, to follow trends, to sacrifice everything for fame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It reminds us all that it's okay to prioritize what truly matters,
Yeah.
to define success on your own terms. It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between chasing your dreams and nurturing the relationships that really ground you.
And sometimes it takes courage, to step away from the spotlight, to reevaluate what's important. Seeger's choice to do that, it really speaks volumes about his self-awareness, his commitment to living a fulfilling life beyond the stage.
It makes you wonder how things might have turned out differently if he hadn't taken those risks, if he hadn't been so fiercely independent.
That's the thing, isn't it? We can speculate all we want, but in the end, his path, the choices he made, they led him to where he is now. And he seems at peace with that.
Yeah, absolutely. As we wrap up our deep dive into Bob Seger's career, I'm just struck by his resilience, his dedication to his craft, and that unwavering commitment to his values.
Yeah.
He faced so many challenges,
yeah.
but he stayed true to his vision, and ultimately, he achieved success on his own terms.
It's a reminder that success isn't a straight line. It's a journey with twists and turns, highs and lows.
Yeah.
And it's the choices we make along the way that really define who we are, both as artists and as people.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the remarkable journey of Bob Seger. It's been a fascinating look at resilience, authenticity, and the power of staying true to yourself.